Welcome to this AQA GCSE Geography revision blast. Today we're focusing on the development gap, which is part of the Changing Economic World unit on paper 2. Our first activity is altered vowels, and it is going to focus on development indicators. Development indicators are key pieces of data that give us an indication about the level of economic or social development within a country. You are going to be shown a number of development indicators. Each of them have had their vowels changed to a different vowel. You just need to work them out. Here's our first. Hopefully we're starting off quite easy here. Okay, let's reveal. It is life expectancy. This is the average number of years that you can expect to live in a given country. It is a good indicator of the general level of health within a country. Number 2. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier. Okay, let's have a look. It is adult literacy rate. This is the percentage of adults that can read or write a basic sentence. And in some countries, we give this figure in between men and women separately to highlight the fact that there are some countries where women have far less access to education. So, for example, Afghanistan. Number 3. Hopefully the first word is quite easy. Okay, let's reveal. It is gross national income. So this is the total value of goods or services within a country. It is often given as per capita, so per head, which basically means that that figure is divided by the number of people in the country. So it gives an average figure and it shows the strength of the economy. Number 4. Okay, let's have a look. It is infant mortality rate. So this is the proportion of babies that do not reach their first birthday. So it's given as a figure out of 1,000 live births. So in some countries, for example, you may have a really high figure of over 100 babies not reaching their first birthday. It is a good development indicator because it gives us all sorts of information about maternal health care, for example, about the level of food on offer in an area, about the clean water, all sorts. Obviously, the higher the figure here, the worse the country. Right, number 5. Okay, hopefully we recognise this one. Okay, let's have a look. It is a Human Development Index, which is a composite figure, and you end up working out a calculation that gives you a figure between 0 and 1. The closest to 1, the better the country. Now, it takes into account 3 aspects of life. It takes into account wealth through GNI. It looks at education through the number of years on average that children attend school, and it also looks at health in terms of life expectancy, and it's seen by geographers as a good all-round measure of development. Right, we're going to move on to a round of confusing pairs. So we are going to give you for this round some key phrases and some definitions. You just have to work out whether we have matched them up correctly or not. So we have a low-income country, we've got our middle-income country. Our low-income country, an economy has GNI per capita of $1,035 or less. Middle-income country, the economy has GNI per capita between $1,036 and $12,535. Have we matched these up correctly? What do you think? Okay, let's reveal. Yes, we have. Right, number 2. Newly emerging economy. Economy has a GNI per capita of 12,536 or more. A high income country that has begun to experience high rates of economic development. Now, are they correctly matched up this time? Okay, what do we think? Yes or no? Let's reveal. No, they were the wrong way round. Right, number 3. Do these key phrases and definitions match up correctly? Economic indicator to do with people, e.g. literacy rate, or social indicator to do with money, e.g. GNI. What do we think? Are they correct? Okay, let's match up. No, they were not. Right, number 4. Do the key phrases here match up? So life expectancy, how long people are expected to live from birth in a particular place, and literacy rate, percentage of people who can read in a place. Are they correct? Hopefully you were listening a moment ago, so this one should be nice and easy. Yes, they are. Right, last one. So we've got the Human Development Index, a measure of measuring development in which GDP per capita, life expectancy and adult literacy are combined to give an overview, gross national income, and measurement of economic activity that is calculated by dividing the total national income by the size of the population. Okay, are they correct? Yes, they are. Right, we're going to move on to a categorised activity. You have a number of development indicators down the side. They are either social or they are economic, and you have 60 seconds to categorise them into the right column. Off we go. Okay, how did we get on? So let's have a look at the correct answers. So in terms of our social development indicators, we've got infant mortality rate, people per doctor, adult literacy rate, birth rate, and the access to safe water, leaving our economically developed indicators as percentage employed in the primary sector, GDP per capita, and the unemployment rate. If you got those all correct, well done. We're now going to move on to a round of higher or lower, and we're focusing on the infant mortality rate. So with this activity, you have to decide whether the next country has a higher or lower infant mortality rate. Remember, this is per 1,000 live births. So we're starting off with the UK. The UK has an infant mortality rate of 4. So let's have a look at our next country. We're looking at the USA. Does the USA have a higher or a lower infant mortality rate? So we'll just give you a moment before we reveal. Okay, let's have a look. It's 6, so it is higher. Okay, so the higher it is, the worse the figure. Next country, so we're looking at Cuba this time. So Cuba, part of North America in the Caribbean. Does Cuba have a higher or lower infant mortality rate than the USA? Let's have a look. Quite surprisingly, despite the fact that it is a lower income country, it does have a lower infant mortality rate. Right, Brazil. So does Brazil have an infant mortality rate of 4 or above? So is it higher or lower than Cuba? Let's have a look. It is 12, so it is higher, which is probably what we would expect. So our last country is Nigeria. So does Nigeria have a higher or lower infant mortality rate than Brazil? What do we think? Okay, let's have a look. It has significantly higher at 74. So though Nigeria is a rapidly growing country in terms of its economy, it is a country that still has fairly low life expectancy. It still has some quite poor development indicators. It is a country of huge inequalities, which if you did Nigeria as your newly emerging economy study, you will be very well aware of. Right, let's move on. We're going to do another categorised activity. So we're focusing this time on why there is a development gap across the world. So there are lots of reasons why some countries have been able to develop and some haven't. Now we are going to be able to rank these into historical reasons, physical reasons, or economic reasons. Like before, you have got a minute to do this to get them into those 3 categories. If you need more time, please pause the video. Okay, let's see what they are. So in terms of our historical reasons for uneven development, we have colonialism, conflict and political instability. Now the two bottom ones do go together quite well there. So conflict and political instability mean that people are often reluctant to trade with you. If you had a tourist economy, it may be heavily affected because you are deemed unsafe as a destination, which can have a massive impact on the level of development and what happens to your economy. And obviously we've got colonialism, a really important reason for uneven development. So this is all about centuries ago when European countries went around the world looking for countries to take over and exploit for their resources. Lots of those countries gained their independence towards the end of the last century, which was a great source of celebration, but at the same time these countries were really struggling to stand on their own 2 feet after being ruled by other countries for such a long time. In many cases, these countries took out huge loans to fund giant infrastructure projects, which has had a massive impact in terms of the economic growth because they've been left with these huge debts to repay. Let's move on to physical reasons for uneven development. So firstly, we've got landlocked countries. So landlocked countries are countries that don't have a sea border. Now, it's really difficult to trade if you're landlocked, and you often have to make expensive agreements with your neighbouring countries to transfer goods through to export and obviously to import as well. Lack of natural resources is quite an easy one because it means that you've got less to actually trade with in the first place. And climatic hazards and diseases can cause all sorts of problems in terms of your economy. So they can wipe out your crops for starters, but also they can stop trade, they can stop tourism. Things like COVID, for example, had a really bad impact there. Ebola in West Africa around 2015 would have had a huge impact on the economy as well. And then in our economic reasons for uneven development, we have got poverty. And then we've got world trade system. So the idea is sort of unfair trade and countries being taken advantage of. So well done if you got those in the correct column. Right, we're going to move on for a round of true or false. So our first statement is another way to describe charities who provide aid is NGOs. Is this true or false? Okay, let's have a look. It is true. So NGO stands for non-governmental organisations. They are companies that rely 100% on donations rather than money from the government. So ActionAid, Oxfam, and these guys are really important in terms of development. Number 2, intermediate technology means giving people the best technology available. Is this true or false? Okay, let's have a look. It is false. So it's also known as appropriate technology. So it's not the best technology available, it is the most appropriate technology. So it's normally quite small scale and quite simple. It's normally quite cheap. And the reason for that is because it has to be sustainable. So for example, if you give technology that is really expensive and really high tech and suddenly it breaks down, the people that are relying on that for whatever development project they are going through at the time suddenly can no longer benefit from that because they haven't got the skills to maintain that equipment. So by having appropriate technology, it means that local people can set up and maintain it. So therefore it has a much bigger impact. 3, microfinance loans are small loans which people can invest in small business to improve their income. Is this true or false? Okay, let's have a look. It is true. So they are small loans given out to people that normally wouldn't be able to get credit, and they can use them to set up small businesses, or they can use it to invest in an existing business in order to improve their income, to improve their quality of life. Debt relief means writing off all of the debt for a country. Is this true or false? Let's have a look. It is false. So usually it means writing off a chunk of the debt. So if we think back to what I said a minute ago about taking out great big loans and having to make these huge repayments, debt relief is a really important part of reducing the development gap. But it does come with all sorts of terms and conditions. So countries have to show that they're not going to just get themselves into debt straight away. Often it is linked to all sorts of promises. So in some countries, there's a nice link here to Paper 1 and the Living World, where some countries have their debt written off in order to spend that money on conservation projects, which is obviously quite a good thing. Okay, and our last true or false statement is this one. Investment, industrial development and tourism are all strategies which can close the development gap. Is this true or false? Let's have a look. It is true. Okay. Right, we're going to do a game of the big reveal now. You've got to work out what is hidden behind the question mark before all of the clues are revealed. Let's go. Number 1. Money can be spent on community projects. Number 2. Agreement to farm in an environmentally friendly way. So, for example, no chemicals. Number 3. Set standards for trade with low-income countries. Number 4. Farmers get all of the money from the sale of their crops. And number 5, farmers are guaranteed a fair price for what they produce. Now, have we worked out what these clues lead to? If you haven't yet, maybe pause the video because we are about to reveal. Hopefully you've worked out that they are talking about fair trade. So well done. This is a strategy for reducing the development gap. Now, this leads nicely into our next activity. We are going to form a chain of analysis. So we are rearranging the sentences to form a chain of analysis that explains how fair trade reduces the development gap. These are your statements here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What we need you to do is read through the statements, pop them in the correct order, and then read back that and see whether you think you have got a chain of analysis that explains how fair trade reduces the development gap. Now, obviously, you need to pause the video to do that. So if you haven't already paused the video, can you please do that now? So like I said a minute ago, if you haven't paused the video, please do so because we are about to reveal the correct answer. Okay, so fair trade schemes mean that producers get paid more and there is also a premium paid to the community. This money can be used to buy machinery which will increase yields and could be used to process raw materials. Higher prices can be charged for processed goods so farmers increase their income. If farmers have more income, they can afford to buy food and medicine for their families, improving their health. Healthy families living without the burden of poverty have a higher quality of life. So there we have. We've got 5 statements that all link together to explain how fair trade increases the quality of life and reduces the development gap. Right, we're going to move on to a connection wall activity. On the screen in front of you, you have 16 words or phrases which can be grouped into 4 different groups, each with 4 in. Now we're going to give you a little bit of a hand and we're going to tell you each time what we want you to look for. Each time I want you to pause the video, have a look for the 4 that you think are correct and then unpause to check. So we're going to start off by asking you to find the 4 that you think are development indicators. So pause the video, look for the 4 development indicators. When you're happy you've got them, then unpause the video and we will double check. Okay, if you haven't paused the video already, please do so. We are just about to reveal your 4 development indicators. They are infant mortality rate, adult literacy rate, access to safe water, and life expectancy. Right, the next ones that we would like you to look for are 4 reasons for the development gap. So again, pause the video, note down the 4 reasons for the development gap, and then unpause when you are ready. Okay, let's have a look. We've got war, pests and diseases, colonialism, and we have extreme climate. Right, what I would like you to do now is to look for stages of the demographic transition model. So we're looking for 4. If you haven't paused the video, please do so. Let's have a look at what they are. You've got late expanding, high fluctuating, natural decrease, and early expanding. And then we have got 4 left over. So what do our 4 remaining boxes have in common? Okay, have we worked it out? Let's see. They are newly emerging economies. So well done if you got that link. Right, let's move on to some multiple choice questions. So our first one is, DTM stands for Declining Transition Model, the Detailed Transition Model, or the Demographic Transition Model. Hopefully nice and easy because I mentioned it a moment ago. It is the Demographic Transition Model. Well done. Number 2. Stage 1 of the DTM has a high birth rate and low death rate, high birth rate and a high death rate, or a low birth rate and a high death rate. Let's have a look. It is B, high birth rate and a high death rate. Stage 3 of the DTM has rapidly falling birth rate, slowly falling death rate. B, slowly falling birth rate and death rate, or C, a rapidly falling birth rate and death rate. Let's reveal. It is A. Stage 5 of the DTM has a rapidly falling birth and death rate, a low birth rate and a very low death rate, and a very low birth rate and a low death rate. So this is stage 5. Okay, let's have a look. It is C, so very low birth rate and a low death rate. Number 5. Stage 2 of the DTM has A, gradual natural increase, B, stable natural increase, or C, very rapid natural increase. Okay, it is C. Question 6. Stage 4 of the DTM has A, rapid natural increase, B, stable or slow natural increase, or C, natural decrease. Let's reveal. It is B, stable or slow natural increase. Number 7. A population pyramid for a country in stage 1 of the DTM has a wide base and sides that curve in, so it's concave, a narrow base and sides that curve out, so it's convex, and a wide base and sides that curve out, which again is also convex. What do we think? Okay, let's have a look. It is A. So wide base and sides that curve in. Number 8. A population pyramid for a country in stage 4 of the DTM has A, a narrow base and sides that curve out, B, a wide base and sides that curve in, or C, a wide base and sides that curve out. What do we think? So this is stage 4 of the DTM. Let's reveal the answer. It is A, so a narrow base and sides that curve out. Number 9. An example of a country in stage 3 of the DTM is A, Kenya, B, Brazil, C, Japan. Let's have a look. It is Kenya. Well done. And our last MCQ, 10. An example of a country in stage 5 of the DTM is it Kenya, Japan, or Brazil? Okay, let's reveal. It is Japan. So there's very few countries that are in stage 5 of the DTM, and they are highly advanced nations. So, for example, Japan. Right, we are almost at the end of our revision blast. We're just going to have a think about transnational corporations, because they play a big role in trying to reduce the development gap, but they also do create some issues in low-income countries and newly emerging economies as well. So what I would like you to do is, in the 30 seconds on the clock, you need to note down 4 reasons that transnational corporations locate in low-income countries or newly emerging economies. Off we go. Okay, let's have a look. So 4 reasons that TNCs locate in LICs and NEEs. We've got cheaper labour, we have relaxed environmental laws, saves costs by not actually owning the factories, and government incentives such as tax breaks. Right, our last activity is another connection wall. So this time we're working out the 3 groups of phrases here. Now this time we are going to get you to pause the video and do them all at once. So we're looking for economic impacts, social impacts and environmental impacts of transnational corporations locating in newly emerging economies or low income countries. So just to repeat that, we are looking for 4 social impacts of transnational corporations, 4 environmental impacts, and 4 economic impacts. So the impacts of these corporations locating in newly emerging economies or low income countries. Social, economic, and environmental, and there are 4 for each. Okay, so pause the video. Once you are happy that you have categorised them into economic, social, and environmental, then unpause the video and we can check whether you are right or not. If you haven't paused the video, then please do so. Okay, let's reveal our first category. So if we look at the economic impacts of transnational corporations, we've got often local workers are poorly paid, but there is job creation. Skills and training is provided, but economic leakage occurs. So that basically means that lots of the profits go to other countries. They do not stay in the local area. In terms of social impacts, we've got working conditions can be unsafe. Workers are often exploited. But there is infrastructure improvements which also benefit local communities. So, for example, new roads might be built, and it does mean that people can afford better access to healthcare and education because people generally are earning a little bit more money working for TNCs than perhaps if they were working on farms. Finally, then, our environmental impacts are the loss of habitats, chemicals leaked into waterways. Remember, we said that the environmental laws are often much more relaxed, so chemicals can be leaked into local waterways and companies won't get fined for that. Toxic fumes can be emitted, and there are also problems with oil spills, particularly in places like the Niger Delta, just off the coast of Nigeria, where there's been a number of quite big high-profile oil spills over the last decade, which have had a massive impact on both fishing and farming land, and the livelihoods obviously go with that as well. Right, well done for getting right to the end of the Revision Plus. We have covered loads and loads of different activities looking at recall of key issues around the development gap, which has hopefully reminded you of lots of those things that may come up in this section of paper 2. If you haven't already done so, then please have a look at our Revision Blast playlist because we have got these for all of the subtopics right across both paper 1 and paper 2. And it just leaves me to wish you the very best of luck in your exams.